We've just felt led to invest in our people. One of our action statements is we grow and develop personally and professionally. In order to have excellence that distinguishes our performance and service, we have to have strong leaders. Everything rises and falls on leadership.
Exceptional leaders never stop investing in the development of others and stay humble enough to continue learning themselves. I'm your host, Tim Spiker, and this is the Be Worth Following podcast, a production of the People Forward Network. On this show, we talk with exceptional leaders, thinkers, and researchers about what actually drives effective leadership across the globe and over time. You just heard from Frank Kelly, CEO of Kelly Benefits, a family-owned and operated company that provides benefits services to companies, brokers, and individuals. At first, Frank didn't think he'd be with the company for a very long time. Since then, Frank has spent 35 years with the organization and now is the CEO, leading alongside his three brothers. As you listen, you will hear that Frank doesn't see his work merely as a business enterprise. He sees it as a calling and unapologetically integrates his personal faith into the business and how he leads. You'll get a chance to hear how Frank wrestled with his family members to clarify the organization's mission in order to help it grow. And you'll hear how he regularly sees himself as a learner despite holding the top leadership position in the company. But before we get to all of that, let's start where Frank's leadership inspiration comes from: his faith, athletic coaches, friends, and his family, one of whom modeled for Frank the leadership power of simply being present. Who are a few people who have been influential for you, who have led you in the past, that influence who you are and the way you lead today?
A number of names go through my mind. First, Jesus Christ is a leader I'm trying to follow daily. But tangibly here on earth, I think of the influence of my father as a leader. He's modeled love, grace, generosity, and presence. So I see a lot of qualities in him. And I'd give the same shout out to my mom, both people of faith who love God and love others and show it in the way they serve. Their servant leaders. My dad loves people. And he loves problems, so that's interesting. If you call him with a problem, he'll drop anything to help you. He's a practical leader. I think of some of the coaches I've had in sports. I played football and lacrosse in high school and college, and I've heard it said a coach will have more influence in a year than most people will have in a lifetime. And I think of some of my coaches, my high school football coach, my college lacrosse coach, Richie Moran. And these are gentlemen who recruited me and then challenged me to become the best I could be. They really opened doors of opportunity. And I think great leaders open doors of opportunity for others. One other person that really comes to mind was a football teammate from my freshman year at Cornell named Jeff Caliguire. And Jeff led a Bible study that he invited me to my junior year. So we met freshman year. I think we were both kind of lost. I think I was more lost than him, but Jeff really grew in his faith and decided to start a fraternity sorority Bible study at Cornell and his fraternity, Sigma Chi, and with a friend, Greg Stutz. Jeff and Greg led a Bible study that changed my life. And what they did as leaders is expose me to the truth, reality, and power of God's Word.
There were 15 things that you said there that we could probably spend a half an hour on each. But there is one thing that I felt was really unique that you mentioned there when you were talking about your father. And you talked about presence. I wonder if you could say a little bit more about what you mean by that. What was it about your father and presence that stuck out to you?
My dad's still alive today. Here we are, June 2022. He's 82 years old. If I call my dad, he picks up the phone. He will, and he'll do the same for my brothers and all of our kids. It's a great quality. And if I'm the one calling and he picks up the phone, I love it. If I'm with him and my brothers or someone else calls and he picks up the phone, it drives me crazy. Any activity that was important to us, he was there. So as a kid growing up, sporting events and school events, but big games in high school and college, always there. Used to wear a big green hat, Irish Francis Xavier Kelly green hat, so I could find him in the stands. And then, even to this day, he's just present. I'm giving an example. 2018, we took a lacrosse team in affiliation with Fellowship of Christian Athletes to Israel. As teams served, the World Lacrosse Championships were happening there. And we took about 25 collegiate, post-collegiate athletes to make ourselves available to serve the World Lacrosse community as practice dummies and scrimmage against them and serve World Lacrosse in other ways. And my dad was there. He was on the sideline. He's been there through so many events and activities. So I feel grateful. I think one of the greatest gifts you can give someone is your time. And my dad's always been extremely generous with his time.
This is going to serve as a really good transition as we talk a little bit about you as a leader. You lead Kelly Benefits. You provide benefits to a variety of organizations, advise them in that space. But let's talk about this presence idea. And the reason why I think it's so critical is because it seems to me that the world is moving more and more in a direction where being fully present with others is becoming a rare commodity. And then especially you put on the hat that you wear, you lead the organization. And so you've got a lot of people who are desiring your time. How do you do that as the president of an organization?
I try to make myself available. We have some values and action statements. One of our action statements is we encourage one another. We value and respect people. We treat others the way we want to be treated. And I like to say this, not only do we treat others the way we want to be treated, I like to say I have 4 kids, my wife Gail and I want to treat others the way I want others to treat my children. Treat others the way you would want them to treat your children when they show up at an employer or school, which means I get back to people. One of our action statements is we respond to communication promptly and appropriately. We maintain a sense of urgency when responding to people and resolving problems. So I think a way you show respect is you respond to people. And this is another thing that's very annoying in today's culture. I mean, you might reach out to someone and their way of saying no thanks is just not to return your call or your email or your text, which I believe is rude and doesn't show respect. So I might even get back to say to someone, hey, thanks for emailing me, but I'm not interested at this time. Have a great day. God bless. And then the people will be like, oh my gosh, you got back to me. Thank you so much. And I just said, I don't want to talk to you. The other thing, and I get going fast and a little rushed, and then I'm not fully present. So I might be there, but not fully mentally and emotionally present. And usually by focusing on someone else, by asking questions is a way to model presence. When you take attention off of yourself and ask questions of others, I think it's a valuable leadership skill.
When you think about what does it mean to be a leader who is focused on others as opposed to self, attentiveness is one of the things that a leader can bring. And again, it becomes an increasingly, as we're talking about, an increasingly rare quality, but especially when you have that influential hat on that's called leader, people assume that you have less time. And then when you show up and you are fully present, as we talk about being fully present to and fully engaged with others in every interaction. It's a standard that probably none of us hits perfectly, but it sounds like it's a very important thing to you as a leader and something that you learned from your dad.
It is important to me. And I mean, maybe you've been to an event or you've hosted an event. Maybe you hosted a party at your home or a wedding or something, and someone comes from a long distance. Usually it's like, wow, thank you so much for being here. Presence matters. And I love the gift of presence.
You mentioned as we were getting started here that you played football, you played lacrosse. Talk to me a little bit about how your athletic experiences influence the way that you lead today.
Oh my gosh. I don't know that anything has influenced me more from a practical standpoint. Going back to youth sports, played at least 2 sports a year since I think I was 7 or 8. And I used to get really anxious and nervous. You learn to overcome maybe some of those things or to go forward despite it. Obviously, when you're playing sports, you learn to win, you learn to lose, you learn to get back up, you learn to deal with coaches that are fair and nice and gracious, and you learn to deal with coaches who are not fair, who aren't nice and aren't gracious, which we deal with in the workplace. I think you learn to push yourself through things, and obviously you learn discipline, you learn preparation. As you know, in sport, there's a lot you cannot control, and then you learn to control what you can, right? Your attitude, your effort. If you're hurt, you can't control that. If the coach doesn't put you in, you can't control that. So I think you can learn a lot that applies in many areas of life.
As we look at your role today, the organization has obviously grown a great deal under your leadership, and you've got over 400 people that are employed now in the organization. What are the things that are most critical to you that you keep top of mind most of the time as you look at how you lead the organization?
Let me just say this. I've been in over 35 years. My brother John, 34. My brother David, 32. My brother Brian, 31. So I'm equal partners with my brothers. We each bring different gifts, and there's some joys and challenges. I really look at the words of respect, humility, and generosity. I want to treat every person with respect the same way. I want to be a servant. to everyone. I would want every single person I come in contact with to be blessed in some way through that contact. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, but this is my heart. And then generosity. I want to be generous with my time and my talent, my treasure, and my testimony. And that's the way I kind of approach leadership.
So let's talk about the things that Kelly is doing intentionally. And I say that because having read through some of your literature, having you and I talked a little bit previously, this idea of leadership by accident or culture by accident doesn't seem to be something that would connect with you as an organization. So let's start with, from a leadership standpoint, what are you doing to intentionally develop both your senior leaders and other folks further into the organization as they grow and develop in their opportunities to lead?
Well, first of all, we believe strongly in wise advisors and consultants. And so for me and my brothers and our CFO, we have met just about every Tuesday morning for the last 20 years. It's about a 3-hour meeting. It's a grinder, but it's really 3 or 4 meetings. The first half hour is just talking life and touchdowns and goals and proms and graduations and heartbreaks and family. Then we get into some key operational issues, bring in operational leaders. Usually we spend some time on some financial metrics with our CFO, and then we're usually dealing with different strategic issues. So, we couple 3 or 4 meetings into one long meeting. So that monthly meeting for me and my brothers, we've met with a kind of a spiritual leadership coach, and then we spend a half a day a month off site with that coach. And those are things working through our own leadership issues, character, integrity, our values aligning with our actions, our heart. They're challenging meetings. They're deep. And we're trying to make sure our faith and our lives and actions and words and deeds align with our faith. And so that's one thing we do as executive leaders and owners. And then separately, once a month, I meet with the next 7 levels of leaders. We call that our senior leadership team, the first team executive leaders. So with our senior leadership team, we're using 2 consultants, one that works with us and another that's working with them on a monthly basis, just helping them become the best leaders they can be and working through communication issues. And just this year, we've done different things. One of the biggest challenges for employers with, let's say, more than 100, 200 employees, you're going to hear, I believe, is in the mid-level management, things getting from executive level to senior level to VP level to director level to And so we just implemented what we call the Kelly Benefits Leadership Academy. And we're working with another really phenomenal consultant, a guy named Chris Allen, always about people. And we're doing a monthly. I just sat through it today. A monthly, it's a 10 a.m. for an hour and a half or 1 p.m. for an hour and a half. We got our 70 key leaders. So it's VPs, directors, managers, anybody who's leading people in our organization. Because what tends to happen in a lot of organizations as you grow, you take somebody who's really good at a function, a sale, an enrollment, a quality, a QA, whatever, a call, and you make them a leader of people, and they don't have training in leading people. So we've been working really hard. We've got a really incredible program we're working through right now, and that's monthly as well. So yeah, we're trying to work with our executive leadership team, which is me and my brothers as owners, our senior leadership team, and our senior management team, and then our entire mid-level management team in different ways.
So ballpark for me a little bit in terms of the amount of time that you and your brothers, the senior leadership team, and then the group below that, you're investing pretty meaningful hours. And the reason I'm asking the question is because so many times in the space of leadership development, in the space of culture development, people have this question of time. How much time is it going to take me to work on these things? How much time are my folks going to have to be away from their everyday responsibilities and activities? How do you quantify that? And then how do you justify the investment, especially on an opportunity cost standpoint?
As we've grown, we've just felt led to invest in our people. One of our action statements is we grow and develop personally and professionally. In order to have excellence that distinguishes our performance and service, we have to have strong leaders. Everything rises and falls on leadership. And so, like anything, it evolves over time. Our cornerstone vision, mission, values, action statements have all been developed over time. So look, I'd say me and my brothers are in more meetings than we'd like to be each month, but we're in a different place. We used to be in the trenches, grinding it out, selling and renewing, and we still are some, but we spend more time working on ourselves and working on our leaders and working on our business to honor God. And God seemed to bless and honor that. So we're trying to be cognizant not to weigh down our leaders. I think we're finding the right balance right now. So look at our senior managers, our management team, the 70, it's just 3 or 4 hours a month. Our senior leaders, it's probably in the area of 6 hours a month. And then me and my brothers, it's probably 20 hours a month at least, or 30. But we're in a place now where when we're together thinking through these leadership qualities and characteristics, we're dealing with some strategic issues as well, too.
Some of that 20 to 30 hours is, would it be fair to say, some of that's operational decision making and discussion?
Very much so. Yeah, probably half of it is really.
But even so, let's just be conservative. Take 20 and you have it. You're talking about, of your most senior leaders in the organization, the four of you, you're spending 10 hours a month purely on developing yourselves as leaders, which, because I have an engineering degree, I can calculate that that's 120 hours a year for the most highly compensated people in the organization. There's a lot of organizations that don't make that kind of investment at the very top. And especially, Frank, I'll tell you, especially family-owned businesses, because, well, they have a thing, frankly, that a lot of family-owned businesses have where as they go through time, the privilege and the entitlement comes in, and there's less focus on how to lead well and more focus on wealth transfer. So I really admire what you're doing, because I think it's rare in general, and then I think it's even rarer when you look at family-owned businesses.
Between me and my brothers, by the way, we have 21 kids, 15 boys, 6 girls. And we have 2 Gen 3s in the business. We have 2 more coming. They've all been encouraged to work outside the business. We spend 90% of our time on values transfer and 10% of our time on estate transfer. We have a family business consultant too, working very hard on our succession planning, not only for the next gen that come in, but for the leaders that are in our organization who are incredibly gifted leaders. They need to know that we're doing things with excellence and with respect and with humility and with integrity. So those values drive everything.
You talked about wise counsel, wise advisors earlier. And then as we've been talking about the work that you're doing to develop leaders and the culture of leadership in the organization, I've heard over and over again that you have people from outside the organization that are contributing to developing those leaders internally. Tell me a little bit about the evolution of that thought, because of course there's the opportunity or possibility, hey, let's just handle that internally. Let's not spend the extra money that it takes to go outside. How did you end up at this space where you have this cadre of external advisors that are supporting you in leadership development?
Number one, to maintain my own sanity, because I have a passion to grow and lead. And I can't lead my brothers and participate. So I need to be a learner like them. So God's brought us great people. I've kept my eyes and ears and heart open. What happens is if I bring in a wise advisor consultant who facilitates conversation, then I can appropriately participate in that conversation as well. If I'm leading it, I kind of take myself out of the chance to participate. Otherwise, it just doesn't work well. And then you need different perspective and you need different experience that we don't have. Like me and my brothers, none of us have. When we started, no one had ever run a company with 20 employees. None of us ran a company with 50 or 100 or 500. And it's one thing to do the work, and then it's another thing to manage and do the work. And then it's another thing to lead the managers and the people who do the work. It's another thing to think strategically as an executive. So we're learning. All of our training and development has evolved with us looking at everything through our values. Like, hey, how can we get better? How can we help our people get better? This management team that's for all 70 of our managers and leaders, directors, VPs, and including me, CEO down. I'm in there with somebody who's managing a call center team with 10 people because we can all learn. So how do I drive our mission, vision, and values so they're not words on a wall? I wanted to integrate the spiritual part into the business and went to a conference called Business by the Book. And my dad and I went, I kind of dragged him. And I came out of that retreat challenged that you at least need to have a written mission statement. And we didn't at that time. So we were in business 15 years without a written mission. And when I said, Dad, I'm going to write the mission, he goes, I already know what our mission is. And I go, what is it? He goes, it's right here. It's in my heart. And I'm like, I know, but if we're going to grow, we might need to get it on paper. And so I looked at 10 companies I respected, some faith-based, some not, pieced a mission together. I thought it was pretty good. And my dad and brothers are like, yeah, whatever. I guess that can be our mission. I don't care. 3 or 4 years later, we brought in a consultant who was an organizational leadership consultant. We were dealing with maybe some leadership immaturity and stuff, organizational issues, and someone had referred him. And he really challenged us. You have a mission statement, of course. I'm like, yeah. My brother's like, I don't know, maybe. I don't think so. My dad's like, yeah, I don't know. I think Frank wrote something. I'm like, yeah, we have it. So he said, no, you need to go away. So we went away, rewrote it, tweaked it with our spouses. And since 94, we've had a mission on the wall that we've all embraced, we all believe in, we all can explain. And from that evolved other things, our value statements, our action statements, our vision statement. And I think these things all add up to a company that hopefully is honoring God and providing excellent service in the market.
I love your focus on how do we get it off of the wall and into our feet, into our actions.
Yeah, I'd much rather not have any words on the wall than have empty words on the wall. I can tell you that right now.
As you look forward and think about the influence that you have, think about the work that you're doing that could be within the lives of the people whose services you're exposing them to, giving them opportunities to, but you obviously have your employees as well. What kind of goals and hopes do you have over the next 5 to 10 years for Kelly Benefits?
One of the challenges in our industry and others, there's a lot of private equity money and people are buying and selling everything. And we get offers like weekly, monthly, and we could sell for a lot, but that's not what we're sensing. We're sensing that God wants us to build a legacy business. So we've worked really hard with the family business consultant, and the next gens have worked really hard to follow this plan of getting prepared outside. And if they do come in humbly. And so we're over the next 3 to 5 years, I think I see a little more transition to the next generation. They're going to have to come in and humbly prove themselves. We also have other amazing leaders in place who know that that's part of the plan. Ideally, we would continue to grow and grow our influence and impact. I tend not to be a great 5-year, 10-year planner. I tend to be more of a ask the Holy Spirit to fill me every day and live how he leads me type of planner. At the same time, we need to be wise and strategic. And I mean, we definitely do a 1-year plan and a 3-year plan, but I'm more in the 1-year planning module. But if I looked out 5, 10 years, I'd love to see appropriate leadership from the next generation and others within the company leading it in a way that continues to honor and glorify God, that is managed a manner that's profitable, returns a solid investment, and is giving back to the community in lots of different ways.
There's a few things that Frank talked about that I want us to take a little bit of a pause here as we wrap things up. One of the first things that really stuck out to me about what Frank shared is just a sincere willingness to invest in the development of leaders. And you heard it in so many different things that Frank talked about in terms of all the different things that they're doing with their various levels of leadership in terms of investing time, energy, and meaningful dollars as well. And did you notice that Frank always was careful to include himself in the mix? I have seen many top leaders in organizations who look at leadership development and say that is something that we need to do for everybody else. They don't see themselves in that same light. And so in the humility that Frank comes with, he says, you know what? I need to be growing and developing in my leadership as well. So it isn't just the time, energy, and money for other people that needs to show up, but it's his own time. It's his own energy. And then as he's an owner of the company, obviously he's investing money, but not just in the development of other leaders. He's investing it in the development of himself as a leader as well. And so that willingness, that enthusiasm to invest in the development of leaders is unique. And it's especially unique to hear from somebody who sits at the top of a family-owned company. The other thing that I want to point out as we finish up here is one of the first things that Frank talked about. He talked about his father, and he talked about his father had presence. Now, this isn't the presence of I come in a room and you feel the significance of who I am. In fact, it's kind of the opposite of that. It's I come into a room and I am fully here to engage with others. I am here to be with you. And that is something that Frank and I talked about a little bit, this idea of presence. And when you look at the world that we lead in today, you look at how fast-paced it is, you look at how technologically driven it is, you look at how many distractions are available to us as leaders. And I know you have many responsibilities, but what does it mean to the people that we are leading when they walk in the room and we actually close the computer and we put the phone away, not on the table in case I have a phone call that I want to get to instead, but we actually put it away and go eyeball to eyeball with people, giving our full attention. So here's the question I have for you today. When you look at yourself as a leader, are you someone who is fully present to and fully engaged with others in every interaction? This is Tim Spiker reminding you to be worth following. and to follow us wherever you receive your podcasts. If you've heard something valuable today, please share our podcast with your colleagues and friends. And if you're up for it, leave us a 5-star review. Thanks for listening.